Oh, if you look at the departure angle viewer, you'll see the International Space Station. But you dare not touch it. It is very old and brittle. And if you look to your starboard, no, the other side, you'll see the Discovery. And here's this different Discovery. No, I don't know why it's spinning like that. No more questions. Are you all ready for episode 3 of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3? That's 3 for 3, and this is Mining the Mind's Mine, I think. A confusing title. This is a comedy. Confusion can be funny. It calls to mind things like Starship Mine, Dagger of the Mind, Mine, all that. References abound, of course, because this is Lower Decks, and references equal funny, or good, or references equal real Star Trek. That's not really true, but they think it's true. This episode, right off the bat, I'm going to say, it's probably not as good as the last two. It's a little pointless, and at the worst of times, it's contrived. At the best of times, it's just innocent. Doing things watching this you never want to be doing when you're watching an episode of anything. Hitting pause and saying, what? Huh? What's happening? Why? Who, what, when, where, how? That's Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 3. And I gave it a few shots. I watched it more than once. Some people out there are going to like this. I can tell that this isn't something that's just objectively bad. It's more on the subjective side, especially with comedy. I'm generally easy to make laugh. Maybe you aren't. I know there's people who watch Lower Decks who I would think would hate it and ended up loving it, and people who I thought would love it ended up hating it. So, with that out of the way, let's get down into things. Let's get down into the nitty-gritty, the brass tacks, the just desserts, if it's good. This is Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 3, Episode 3. A-plot, B-plot is back. You know how I like my A-plots. I like my B-plots. I like them well-cooked. I like them making sense, and I like them when they converge back at the end. And I don't like it when one of the plots is way off in the distance. Forgettable. Contrived, as it were. I've feared for a long time that Rutherford and Tendi would just kind of go into the background. It's obvious that the writers like Boimler and they like Mariner. Mariner's the hero. Boimler's the butt of the joke. Haha. Its best moments, though, in my opinion, Lower Decks as a whole, its best moments are when they have Boimler and Mariner come together in a genuine way. Those are my favorite moments. They weren't funny, but they were good. In this episode, no one's coming together. Everyone's kind of fighting, more or less. But Tendi, in her B-plot, she's kind of gone. Okay? And that makes me sad. Because I want to get to know Tendi. I want to get to know Rutherford. A little bit. I want them to be able to show what makes them special. In this episode, we did see a little bit of what made Rutherford special. Thank you. But our A-plot mainly involves our main cast, Mariner, Boimler, Rutherford, not Tendi, going down the surface of this planet to clean up these fantasy orbs. In our pre-intro sequence, which intrigued me a lot, by the way, a Federation scientist, archaeologist / historian is mining for something on this planet that we learn later is Genghis 4, I believe. Perhaps that's incorrect. And they have a run-in with the native species, that's the Scrubble. And anyway, there's glowing green orbs on this planet that when you get near them, they make your wildest fantasies come true. But look and don't touch. If you touch the fantasy, you turn into a stone. Very TOS, very fun. I was very intrigued. I hope they're going to do something cool with that. They kind of don't. Your mileage may vary, as I want to say. But what are we going to do about these fantasy orbs? Well, the Cerritos, the Carlsbad, 2 California classes, and the Hood. The Hood is there. We get to see the Hood in all her glory. The Excelsior class is there as well. Excelsior class leaves, leaving the cleanup job to the California classes, baby. Carlsbad and Cerritos. And we have crew versus crew. Okay, we have our 3 counterparts from the Carlsbad and our 3 counterparts from the Cerritos. You know, our crew versus their crew. Who's better? Who's best? Who can get it done fastest? We just got to clean up these orbs, right? Easy peasy. What could go wrong? Things go wrong when ensigns get full of themselves. They get higher in their own supply, and they want to outdo the other crew. In the belief system of the crew of the Cerritos, they are the underdog. They're not. Later on, we learn that the crew of the Carlsbad looked up to them. Haha. Whoops. I didn't understand. A comedy of errors. I didn't think you thought that. Well, I thought you thought this. Ha ha ha. You know the story. But for now, we're trying to outdo each other. Who can get this done faster? We're using the fantasy orbs to create numerous visual comedic gags. Some of them are funny, some of them aren't. Some of them are just make you go, huh? I didn't really laugh that much. But Boimler has some vision by getting close to this rock of fighting the Borg. Mariner has a vision of that Andorian girl on the ship, Jennifer. And Rutherford has a vision of Leah Brahms. You might remember from the flights of fancy that Geordi would get up to in the holodeck in TNG. Say no more, say no more. Nudge, nudge. But they come together at one moment trying to distract our crew with half-naked Andorian Jennifer straight out of that episode of Enterprise when the Andorians were running around the ship, and Leah Brahms together saying, "Come check out the warp core with us." And I just had to pause. Oh. That was a little much for me. But I guess me and Rutherford share similar fantasies. Warp cores and half-naked Andorians. What can I say? So what do you think happens, right? Well, our commanding officer on site tries to slam dunk some green orbs into this bin, and he breaks a few. What could happen, right? Ha ha ha. We're just going to be attacked by giant ham sandwiches. Ha ha. No. When you break the fantasy illusion orb, it doesn't create your fantasies. It creates your nightmares. And he proceeds to get waylaid by KukulCON. He has a nightmare about a flying serpent. That came out of nowhere. But I guess it's interesting. So we see a giant Borgified snake. Jennifer, if that was her name, the Andorian, turns into a werewolf. And we have clown Klingons running around. Because I guess someone's afraid of clowns. Much like me. They run to a cave. And they have their bonding moment. You know, the bonding moment. We thought you guys were the coolest. No, we thought you were the coolest. If this wasn't a cartoon, and if it wasn't wholesome, this could have come off like Discovery's self-congratulatory wanking. But it doesn't. It somehow avoids that. Because all of our characters are stupid. And we're getting along with each other because of our brotherly love. We're ensigns. We're both lower deckers. We're deckers. Together. For life. Never give up. Never surrender. Deckers forever. So they huddle around a warmed up rock that they heated with a phaser and discuss this and that, and then they try to get out of here. You know what? This is a Star Trek episode. Let's get the heck out of here. And they come across a Federation underground lab. What's going on? Were the Federation civilian scientists, hiding something down here? Is there more going on between the Federation scientists and the native Scrubble? What could it be? This is kind of like that episode of Enterprise where Archer found blank on blank. That blank we're using to spy on the blank. For people who didn't see Enterprise. What's funny about that is I can just say it like that, and if you've seen Enterprise, you know what I'm talking about. I actually don't have to finish the sentence. So if I just blank it all out, you know what I'm talking about if you've seen Enterprise. But if you didn't, you can just go watch it and not be spoiled. It's great. But for those who know, you know what I'm talking about. We found the secret thing underground. In this episode, it's a station that looks like it's collecting information from the fantasy orbs, right? And if I'm not mistaken, this whole thing was to collect secret information by probing into the minds of Starfleet officers on the surface. Why have the fantasy orbs? What does it have to do with anything? That's where we get contrived from. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to create a funny scene, these orbs that are meant to suck out mind waves from the officers on the surface, distract them with fantasies. I don't know why. And when you break them, they create your nightmares. And are they physical or not? You touch them, you turn to stone. But yet later on we find out we can fight them? Seems kind of dangerous, don't you think? It feels like there was a few scenes cut, a little bit of explanation that was considered too dry or boring, so they left it on the cutting room floor. But I think maybe it needs it, because I was getting kind of lost at this point. This outpost, underground, hidden, they look into its magic crystal ball. They're stealing all kinds of classified information from the officers. Well, we get out of this cave. Rutherford, by the way, is finally using his prosthesis to do something cool. He's looking around with a little flashlight in his eye. His Vulcan cybernetic eye is turning into a glorified flashlight. But hey, at least it's something. At least we remembered that he has an implant. We get out and we fight these fantasy nightmare creatures who are they real or are they not? We die when we touch them, but we can fight them with sticks and rocks. Can we phaser them? I don't know. It left me wanting. But we defeat them somehow. And then their plot is just complete. The crew of the Carlsbad and the crew of the Cerritos, our friends, our main characters, we're all buddy-buddy at the end. We defeated these fantasy creatures, and we discovered the truth about the spying operation. That the Fed scientists and the Scrubble are in cahoots to steal information from the minds of Starfleet officers and sell it on the black market for science gear and rocks or something. As Freeman points so eloquently, she points out at the end that maybe this plot doesn't make as much sense as we think it does. The voice of the audience. The episode did begin with a refreshing captain's log from the captain. I like to see that. And we ended off with a comment from the captain, as well as comments from our main characters. They don't really matter. Or do they? That's your A-plot. What did you think? I didn't really love it. I will say that you're presenting a planet where we can make your fantasies come true, and then you touch them, you turn to stone. See, that's kind of like, what's that episode, Shore Leave from TOS? But like a little bit more scary, a little bit more advanced, and a little bit more unknowable, because it involves these orbs. I was intrigued. You could have went a lot further with it. But what we ended up with was nothing. Wouldn't it have been cool to get to the end of the episode and then find out one of our characters was a fantasy? Or a nightmare? Maybe Boimler was on the ship the whole time? You know, something like that? Something cool? None such luck. Our B-plot, Tendi, we throw her out of the window right at the beginning. She's going on her science officer training mentorship, and she's being mentored by, what's his name? Miglimo? You know, the bird guy? I believe he was the ship's counselor. We've seen him last season. And now we're finally getting to know him. Cool. I like weird alien species, and I like when Trek is alien and not so human. He's her mentor. I guess not everything is just exams. I guess not everything's hardcore all the time. Maybe they don't want a good officer. Maybe they want a good person. Right? You can spend forever in the simulator, and you still won't be half as good as the person who has people skills, who has leadership skills, who can get people to rally behind them. Believe me, I know. I don't care how much time you spend in the simulator. You gotta be able to deal with Miglimo in this episode. Hey, have some worms at this dinner table. Why is it in Star Trek every time we need to eat something gross? It's worms. Klingon gag, the strange worm meal that our characters in TNG eat in the episode Conspiracy. I like that episode, by the way. A guilty pleasure. It's good. I don't think it's a guilty pleasure. I think it's just pleasure. A little micro review for a totally different episode of Star Trek from a long time ago. Our mentorship just kind of occurs off screen. She's doing who, what, when, where, why, how. To bring up that phrase again, we see a few different gag scenes in Medbay. Someone's getting their foot cut off. Dr. Tiana is there just to ruin the age rating of the show, as if it were possible for it to work like that. I know it doesn't work like that, but she comes in just to remind me that, yeah, we're watching modern nasty Trek, because she has to slip in the nasty, non-child-friendly words. At least they're censored out. I censor spoilers. They censor nasty, pointless word enhancers, sentence enhancers that just, I don't think enhance anything. I think it just makes them look dumb. I think it makes their intelligence level look diminutive. A brief window into the mind of the writers. The Scrubble and the Federation scientists have come up with Cerritos. They're in the boardroom. We meet Captain Mayer of the Carlsbad. The Scrubble are presenting a odd, triangular, like pyramidal-shaped rock as a show of their appreciation for the arrival of the Starfleet officers, appreciating all the secret information that they're stealing from their brains. They don't know at this time that they're in cahoots. They're in cat boots. They argue for no reason over who should take this pyramid. Should it go to Captain Mayer? Should it go to Captain Freeman? They're pushing and they're shoving. Who's going to take it? And you know it's going to break. But yet the show wastes, like a good 10 minutes of time, maybe, on them arguing. We cut back and forth to different scenes showing that they're still arguing, and I don't know why. It wasn't funny. It wasn't funny in the first second, and it wasn't funny minutes later. But this arguing goes on forever. I was starting to think that this rock actually had some different kind of power. They had the fantasy stones on the surface. This rock made people angry. I was starting to think like fun thoughts like that, but the real answer was none such fun. Tendi, in the culmination of her amazing and wondrous and fun B-plot, like phasers the rock, revealing a piece of a Federation tech spying device on the inside, a power supply to power the spying device. Kind of a good idea. Captains like to put trinkets in their room, right? Oh, I got a gift from this alien culture. Cool, I'll put it on my shelf with my other things. It was a spying device. We're selling this stuff to the black market. Kind of nasty. Kind of makes you wonder what happens afterwards. These people are in big trouble because they got discovered by the crew of the Cerritos, working alongside the crew of the Carlsbad. That's our A plot. That's our B plot. The Convergence is essentially an unrelated scene where our two crews just meet for lunch and talk about each other. Hey, I thought Mariner was cool. No, you're cool. Tendy's so cool. She's so nice. And Rutherford, he's so smart and awesome, and he has that cool implant. Boimler, I thought you were a tiny comedic robot. By the way they describe you. Yeah, I thought you were a hovering cube or something. You know, our great compliments from our friends from the Carlsbad, that Tellarite human and that other character who belongs to that species that we met like one time in TNG or something with the webbed hands. Remember when Wesley met that guy with the webbed hands? Yeah, that was a while ago. That was the end of our episode. What's the message? Play nice? Work alongside your compatriots like you were already told because you're in Starfleet? Not to overwork yourself? Take your time at the work site? There's something there. But really, it's blasé, it's moribund, and I think we've seen it 1,000 times. Don't believe the reputation that you've been getting from people who don't know you? Maybe? The crew of the Carlsbad represent the people that we don't know who know us. You see, say you have a reputation, say it's good or bad, I know you and you don't know me. And through lack of communication, we get into a problem that necessitates us to communicate and become friends to solve the problem. You see, we make the one-way relationship go two ways. Respect is a two-way street, as they say. I guess that's the moral of the story. I always like it when there's a moral nugget on the inside, a molten nickel iron core rotating at a differential speed from its mantle, creating an electric field that protects its host planet surface from radiation and the like. I don't know what that means. But in the context of this episode, having everything revolve around that thematic core is a good thing. So, you know how we do it. I have a few different pillars that I look at that hold up the roof of a Star Trek episode. You can't hold something up with two pillars unless they're very well placed. And there are episodes like that fail on one pillar but have two really good ones. Interesting analogy, but visually, cool. You get to see Klingons in clown makeup, a Borgified giant snake, which spits out a basketball inexplicably, a werewolf, KukulCON. You get to see two California class in orbit, and you get to see the Excelsior class. You get to see the U.S.S. hood. I couldn't complain visually. Sound-wise, I wasn't really invested. No arousing melodies. Nothing to pull at the heartstrings. It was just kind of background, blah, 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 Rick Berman era music, if you know what I mean. The later Berman era, background music just faded away. Generally, I will say, in the background music sense, New Trek has been pretty good. New Trek does background music. Not as good as TOS and early TNG at all, by any rate. But it's trying. Okay? Last few seasons of Berman Trek, they didn't really try. Music was not a priority for them, and I'm glad to see the priority of music is back. Although that did not seep into this episode. This episode does not fare well in the music department. So, no good points there. Thematically, like I said, there's something there. All these things come together to produce an episode that works on the core things. Broad strokes good, fine details, boring, pointless, and at the worst points contrived. Namely, these fantasy orbs. That's what I call them. Why did we have to see these fantasies and nightmares just to steal the memory of the officers and suck it into a crystal ball underground, and then to sell that information to what I suppose could be our enemies? Why couldn't we just not have the fantasy? Was it a strange after effect that they couldn't control? Maybe these stones predated this whole operation, and they had to modify the stones to get this to work, and a knock-on effect of using the stones to do this was that they gave you fantasies? Maybe it was an accident. The fear of them turning you to stone when you touch them is so quickly dissolved when our characters just start fighting these visions as if they're real. All the fear was gone, and when the tension is gone and the fear is gone, oftentimes the comedy is gone, because comedy is an act of discipline, right? It's only funny so many times when Wile E. Coyote falls over a cliff. You know he's just going to come back, because there's no real danger, so it's not funny. Right? Do you know what I'm saying? When you're trying to make comedy, you need to have the rules of the world very clear. It needs to be obvious what can happen and what can happen, so that when something that you think can't happen, but turns out it could happen, happens, it's a novel thing that makes you laugh. Right? That's the core of funny. I feel like I'm explaining this to Data, but you're not Data. I trust you're a human, maybe. Watching this, I don't know where you are. But at the end of the day, that was Lower Decks, Season 3, Episode 3. Mining the mind's mind, Mining the mind's mind. The name is funny. Hey, the name's kind of comedic. I mean, I'm having fun trying to pronounce it. Are you having fun listening to me try to pronounce it? Did you have fun when you watched this episode? Rutherford got to do something interesting with his prosthetic. Tendi got a B-plot that went nowhere. And again, our plot had Boimler being Boimler and Mariner being Mariner. Big whoop. Let's get something new going. I'm ready for the new. The first 2 episodes, pretty good. This one, not as good. I'm ready to push the boundaries a little bit now. When we go into episode 4 of this season. We only get 10 of these per season. We gotta make it count. So, in summation, I'm gonna have to give this Star Trek episode a flat 5. I don't care if you watch it or don't watch it. I'm probably not gonna rewatch it. It's not good. It's not bad. It doesn't ruin anything, nor does it fix anything. It is 5. It is middle of the road. My rating scale has 0 being literally doesn't work. Like you turn the episode on and it just turns black and then starts flashing different colors and gives you a seizure. That's 0 in my mind. 10, I don't think there's ever been a 10. There's things that go 9.5, but 10 is like, it's like Star Trek the motion picture style stuff. Like that's when you get to the 10 category. It's very hard. You have to be hitting on every single metric. You have to be whole hog, all cylinders firing, balls to the wall to get 10. I haven't seen it in decades, a 10, but this is just 5. So now that you know how my scalings work, you'll know that 5 is totally watchable, but it's also totally not watchable if you don't want to watch it. You be the judge. Did you like it? Did you not? You can tell me in the comments. Did you like this video? Did you hate it? Whatever. Star Trek Day was yesterday, I believe, and I will be commenting on that. So no spoilers here for my thoughts on what happened on Star Trek Day. For those who don't know, that's like a mini convention where we reveal what's happening with Star Trek in the near future. The past for me, I'm Lieutenant Mark, and I'm going to see you when next I see you.